"Actions speak louder than words" is an idiom that specifies that what you do is more important than what you say you're going to do. Though, I believe this idiom can also be loosely applied to one of the most important, yet sometimes underappreciated aspects of tokusatsu media, this of course being the silent profession of suit acting, as it is through the subtle actions and physical quirks of the actors underneath the rubber monster or transforming hero suits that tell you a lot about the personalities of those characters. Though, if there was a series that understood this enough to make a whole character that captured this important aspect and celebrates it, that would be Dandadan and the soulmate-seeking suit stager and sole survivor of the Sumerian race, Bamora, also known as Vamola. Bamora, or Vamola, like most alien allies in Dandadan, started out as an unintentional antagonist, debuting as a kaiju space alien that was seemingly in possession of one of Okuran's golden balls, that eventually became a beloved member of the Dandadudes, with a major aspect of her story focusing on the themes of miscommunication, both verbally and physically, while also showing the importance of being able to speak with your actions, as well as putting into perspective what is the most important in our lives, being essentially a living mirror for the characters to reflect off of. Though, before we can get too deeply into that, let's first begin analyzing the meanings behind her name and designs. So, before we can even discuss her designs, I should really address my pronunciation of her name, as I've been saying both. Now, if you're reading the official release of Dandadan, you might notice that her name is written as Vamola instead of Bamora. This is mostly a translation issue, but not specifically a mistranslation issue, which is an important distinction, as the problem lies with the katakana spelling of her name, as it uses characters that can be pronounced as both ba and va, as well as ma and la. As well, we can't even use the series to gain context clues to decide which one is correct, as it's arguable that both versions of the spelling are equally valid for different reasons. So, let's go over both, starting first with the official Vamola. Now, the name Vamola is actually a rather interesting one when we look at the history of Japanese as a language and its trade throughout the world, as it's based on a slang for let's go that comes specifically from the Portuguese word vamos, which means let's go or come on. The slang has been used in a number of different series like Vamos La, shortened to Vamola or Bamora, which is a seinen sports romance manga, but more importantly in the Sentai series Jodain Sentai Kyoruger, as it is used not only in the opening, Vamola Kyoruger, but is also the sound that the Deardevils make when they are interacted with by the team, which gives the word a strong tokusatsu connection, which would make it all too fitting across Dandadan's own design and art style, which is also heavily Toku inspired. This Toku inspiration is also the same reason why the name Bamora also works as a translation, as Bamora is a more Japanese pronunciation of Vamola, and was directly used as the name for the second kaiju created by Takeshi Todo in the Ultra series Gridman the Hyper Agent, also known in the West as Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. Now, Bamora is actually a pretty traditional kaiju monster design and has made a return throughout Gridman as Mecha Bamora later in the series, which, given that Vamola's tie is to kaiju suits rather than Sentai series, I believe it's more likely that Vamola's name is supposed to be Bamora. Also, not to mention that some translation seen throughout Dandadan is kind of weird, as there's a scene where a character literally says Vamos La and it actually gets translated as Bamora, which makes me really not sure if this is just a complete translation oversight on the character's name that they've just decided not to go back on. I know Viz has a habit of doing that sometimes. Though, in mentioning kaijus, I should probably discuss her design influences, as Bamora debuted in a rather familiar looking kaiju outfit, this being her battlesuit, which seems to be based on a combination of the Heisei era Godzilla mixed together with a classic Ultra series alien known as Gamora, with the Godzilla portions of the design being seen almost exclusively in the face shape of the kaiju suit, as well as her arc beginning with a kaiju suit monster haunting an apartment complex, which is rather reminiscent of the 2001 comedy drama All About Our House, as it features a cameo from not only Godzilla, but Megaguirus. Now, the Gamora portion of the suit is seen in almost everything else, specifically felt the most in the horns around the head, as well as the suit possessing a similar EX battle mode. And this combination makes a lot of sense, as Godzilla and the Ultra series both have been referenced numerous times throughout Dandadan, and the choice of Gamora specifically is likely due to it being one of the most popular legacy kaijus throughout the Ultra series as a whole. As well, the kaiju being named Gamora is one of the reasons that I believe that Bamora is the intended pronunciation of the name. Though, much like suit acting, there always exists a person inside the suit, and they seem to be designed in reference of a couple of things. Firstly, the most obvious being one of the major protagonists of Neon Genesis Evangelion, and the pilot of Eva Unit 0, Rei Ayanami. This is seen best in Bamora's own hairstyle and plug suit, as well as her inability to communicate properly at first. Though this plug suit that Bamora wears may actually be a double reference, specifically to the bodysuits worn by tokusatsu actors, as Bamora's color palette, as well as seemingly her main appearance, borrows a lot from an iconic figure in tokusatsu history, this being the first stunt woman to play a monster on the Godzilla series, Rei Ota, who gained a significant level of popularity based partly on the energy that she would bring to her work as Baragon in Giant Monsters All Out Attack, which is seen best in the behind-the-scenes footage for that movie that spreads around the Toku community from time to time, where, while operating Baragon's suit, she lets out a little roar of her own. As well, the behind-the-scenes photos of Rei trying on the Baragon suit match up very well with the look Bamora has while she is partly wearing her battle suit and it isn't cloaked. Which, speaking of the suit, it has quite a few abilities that make it rather powerful. Firstly, the internals of the battlesuit are entirely a transparent display padding that shows Bamora everything in her surroundings while also cushioning the pilot for when the suit would inevitably take damage. This transparency can also be applied to the whole body, gifting the battlesuit with projection cloaking, similar in idea to the stealth camo from the Metal Gear.
All that does is create an optical illusion. It's no use against Gecko.
Now, this internal display also seems to come with a feature that highlights and scans the strength and energy output of any creature that the suit detects, which personally reminds me of the Scouters from Dragon Ball, but may not be a direct reference to it. Though, like any good Toku-inspired power suit, the battlesuit possesses the ability to henshin, or change shape, in two key ways. Firstly, Bamora can take the shape of anyone that she scans with the suit, being able to replicate the outfits and body type of anyone without issue, with the suit being able to condense around Bamora's body but leaving the internals the same, meaning that the suit can be bigger on the inside. As well, this copying is similar to the projection mapping, as she can, for instance, copy a skirt, but her plug suit won't show underneath, but instead a replication of the legs of whoever she copied. The other way that the suit can transform is via size amplification, where Bamora can cause the suit to grow in height and mass, seemingly to any size she pleases. This size changing occurs also extremely quickly and has allowed her to become much larger than most buildings without actually being noticed. Though, like with most size increasing powers, while her attacks become extremely powerful and destructive the bigger she gets, they also become more lumbering and slow, leaving her open to attacks from quicker opponents and making her easy to dodge by the more agile. Because of this, Bamora, when she is in control of the size changing, tends to match her size to the enemy that she's fighting, or giving herself slightly more height, so that she can maintain an average strength and speed ratio compared to the person that she's fighting. Now, this being able to grow in size is a common trend in Sentai and specifically the Ultra series, with normal humans either gaining the ability to become massive heroes, or monsters growing after they're defeated. Though this size amplification ability is the suit only, as when we're shown internals of Bamora during a scene when her suit has grown in massive size, she is the same height that she is normally outside of the suit, which means Bamora is left helpless if the suit is hijacked, making the suit a bit more like a Zord from a Sentai series. Now, the battlesuit, when damaged enough, may actually enter a self-defense mode, in which it will begin fighting on its own, targeting the closest and strongest thing, eliminating it before pursuing the main target. As well, there is a hidden feature of the suit referred to as Slaughter Mode, which causes the exterior to become a much more vicious design, as well as pushing its power to its maximum limits. Though this form, alongside the base form, have the same weakness, as within the head of the suit contains the power source, a mysterious rock that glows a bright gold when activated, but can be removed with some ease. Therefore, being slammed on its head usually results in the suit's deactivation, returning it to its normal size and appearance. Now, this suit isn't powered by any normal energy though, but instead karmic energy, or energy generated from the actions that determine one's karmic debt. And judging by Turbo Granny's view of it, the suit is almost exclusively powered by suffering and pain, which may paint Bamora in a negative light, as she was introduced as the pilot of the battlesuit, but she did not create it. Instead, it was made for those who wish to see her people dead, as Bamora was born on a planet far from Earth, and its inhabitants are a human-like species of aliens called the Sumerians. They are a super advanced species of sapient-like creatures who originated from Earth, a home planet they called Idea, and the species was extremely technologically advanced, possessing not only teleportation technology, but laser-based weaponry. Though, not long after Bamora's birth, her planet was invaded by an aggressive conglomerate of spacesuit-wielding aliens who viciously slaughtered and enslaved her people, working the ones they captured to death and feeding their fighters to a massive horrific creature called a Big Mama, who converted the ground-up bodies of the beings into extremely powerful suits of armor that allowed the invaders to survive on the planet's atmospheric condition. And it is this reason why Bamora's power suit radiates such a negative energy. It was literally made from the ground-up parts of beings whose last thoughts were nothing but suffering. It is almost a purely evil creation generated from horrific death. Though the same power suit in question ironically is based on one of her people's god figures, a massive warrior god who is said to rise up and save the Sumerian people when evil arises, with the idea behind the suit taking this form being that it was born from the Sumerian people's hatred and suffering, as well as their prayers for their god to save them. Now, the idea of an alien species being named the Sumerians and having advanced technology as well as murals depicting their gods is based somewhat on a pseudo-scientifical belief of the ancient astronaut and/or the ancient aliens theory that Dandadan uses throughout a lot of its story, with most of the invading alien conglomerate taking the shapes of, or similar to, artifacts and beings that have had similar ties in the past. As well, the Sumerians specifically being chosen for the alien race that Bamora hails from is based on a theory of, and I'm probably going to butcher this pronunciation, the Anunnaki, or deity-like figures in Sumerian history, that has been recontextualized through that pseudoscientifical lens as aliens that came to Earth to harvest materials like gold. Hence why Bamora's energy core glows a golden color, and why when Momo attacks Bamora before she has a speech-changing unit, her dialogue mirrors that of text from Sumerian writing. Though, while this mural depicting a god can be somewhat similar to the Anunnaki, it being a massive kaiju is actually more in line with the more recent Godzilla movies, specifically the legendary Godzilla films, with things like Godzilla King of Monsters, as that movie has a mural almost exactly like the one being shown in Dandadan. Though, how is Bamora even able to obtain this powerful suit to begin with? Well, it was in part thanks to her adoptive mother figure, a chef turned hardened warrior, Banga, as Banga was this overly aggressive older woman who buried a lot of her feelings for Bamora, who was someone that showed Banga only nothing but kindness throughout her life, and in their final push to escape the invading threat, Banga hijacked the Sumerian god suit and laid waste to a number of the invading forces before activating a transportation gate inside one of the pyramids on their planet directly to Idea, or Earth. Though, knowing that there was only room left for one of them to make it, Banga pushed Bamora through the gate with the suit modeled after their god, making sure that the Sumerian people's hopes and future can survive to repopulate one day, telling Bamora to find a powerful husband and make sure the memory of her people never dies. Which in turn led to Bamora's arrival on Earth and her encounter with Momo, Okarun, and the rest of the gang, eventually falling for Okarun based on his strength, but eventually growing a powerful bond with the whole crew, specifically Momo, who, while being hostile with her at first, after living with Banga, this is just how Bamora assumed love is shown, as while with Momo, she was fed, sheltered, and even educated. She, after living this life of fear and loneliness, had finally been given a home that she could relax in. And it's also here that she was able to help those she grew to love self-reflect on what they loved themselves, as her role during the major arcs of Dandadan that she appears in is to be more than just another person in the ever-growing love triangle that is Okuran's love life. Instead, it's almost the opposite, as she ends up helping progress Momo and Okuran's own relationship and encouraging both of them to fully commit to each other's feelings in one way or another. As well, they both come around near the end of the arc to help care for Bamora in return. And this was in part thanks to Bamora being a person willing to take action, mixed together with the other semi-arc villain of this run of arcs, Riko Kishima, whose ability literally involves mirrors and reflections. And this helped build a narrative where Momo and Okuran were self-analyzing their own emotions and pushed to the point that they both are confident in saying that they love each other. As well, it is Bamora's own life story that helps encourage those around her to fight with all their might and ensure that the future won't repeat itself. Though the only way the cast actually gets to learn Bamora's story is not through her telling them, but them learning it thanks to her willingness to take action. As one of the most interesting aspects of Bamora's character is what she had to do to communicate with other characters, as it worked quite well with her role as a mirror for other characters to reflect off of, as due to the language barrier she suffers from, Bamora could not directly communicate with the rest of the cast like anyone else could. Instead, she could only do so by speaking with her body language and basic words, and while body language itself was mostly imitation, copying what she likely thought was normal gestures on Idea, it is in the moments where her worry and concern seeps through that really shows her fear of losing this new group that she considered a family. As well, she tended to repeat things that she was asked in hopes of being helpful to the group, and it is her spoken dialogue that works in a similar way, repeating words that she was told and trying to string them into coherent ideas, but never quite getting it right. It kind of feels like the series took that one note that Kohaku sends Senku and Dr. Stone and stretched out into an entire character. This is why it's so important that she speaks through action, be it when she kisses Okuran or defends Momo from a yokai. But most importantly, when she directly faces her fears, embodying her mother and attacking the aliens that slaughtered her people in order to save her friends, allowing her true self to shine through louder than any words Bamora could have spoken, and eventually resulting in Momo, alongside the rest of the group, getting to understand Bamora and her story. It is a genuinely beautiful moment in the arc, which was really rewarding when I was reading it initially during its release, and I hope going forward Bamora gets to continue to play an active role in the group, as if I was to give her anything more than her battlesuit, I think her inheriting the power of Riko Kishima, seeing not only the overwhelming power of the spirit who devastated the alien army that doomed her planet, but also the true beauty of the person that is under the yokai, and where that power came from, as the two of them share a very similar history of bloodshed, loss, and suffering. Though, until then, we'll see where the next arc of Dandadan takes us, as if there's one thing I can definitely say about Dandadan, it's that I never know what's really coming next. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos like it in the future, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/MedyNotTheBadGuy. Every little bit helps keep this channel flowing as smoothly as possible. And if you want to see my dark fury embodied into physical form, well, you can do so by buying a copy of Shimonetta, A Boring World with Content or Dirty Jokes Doesn't Exist at BuyShimonetta.com.